Thanks very much for joining us on Mumbai Tak. Mumbai के बारे में कहा जाता है that it's the city that never sleeps. वो शहर जो कि कभी सोता नहीं है, but of course it also has its side effects. The fact that in this place where everyone is fighting for a living, they're fighting for space, they're pretty much fighting for everything every day, ultimately does it take a toll on you? Yes, it does, because now we've had people talking about the topic which was still now considered taboo, that of depression. It's not something that's a figment of one's imagination. It exists. And how? Is this depression that no one even acknowledges or talks about, is it actually killing us very, very slowly? Joining us now is Dr. Murli Doraiswamy. He's a professor, Duke Health, and member of Duke Institute for Brain Sciences. Professor Doraiswamy, do you think Mumbai in particular is susceptible to mental illness in general and depression in particular, given the nature of the city?
Yes, very much so. Maharashtra and Mumbai in particular has one of the highest rates of suicide in India. So India in particular has very high rates of suicide. Something like about 360 people kill themselves every day through suicide. And for every completed suicide, there's maybe about 10 people who attempt it, who actually are not successful. There are multiple factors, and the suicide rate is very high amongst the youth. And Mumbai in particular is a pressure cooker. People come here seeking jobs. There's very intense pressure. They can't make ends meet, so financial stressors are paramount and one of the single biggest reasons for suicide. The second reason, of course, is Mumbai has this very elite higher end of society. So the higher end of society also has a different set of pressures. They have very high expectations from their parents. And very often the children who feel like they're not meeting those expectations get depressed. They may have a problem with drugs, etc. And that again predisposes them to psychiatric and mental issues.
Let me ask you this. When for the first time, and I'm going to link this directly to what Deepika Padukone had said, many people smirked. They said this is a rich people's disease. They are imagining things. Some even said, what does she have to be depressed about? She's got everything. Is that a fact?
No, it's one of the biggest myths. Depression affects people in all segments of society. In fact, in India, I would say depression rates are particularly high amongst the poorer segments of the population that are not able to meet ends meet. They are under severe financial stress. For example, farmers in Maharashtra, when the monsoon fails them, there are very high rates of suicide. So it's cyclical and it's directly linked to their ability to provide for their family. The rich, of course, have more time to seek help. They have more time to perhaps talk about it. The poor have to go on with their job, and they try to struggle with depression while also coping with their job and their financial issues. So obviously that's why this myth has sort of persisted.
But when you talk about the farmer suicides, largely the impression is that that is more of a financial constraints which drive you to suicide, whereas suicides because of depression only happen in the upper middle class or the extremely rich, and as some would say, people who have run out of things to worry about, so they just imagine that they're depressed.
Right. No, I don't think so. Depression affects all segments of society. It's a complete myth that depression only affects the rich.
Is depression genetic? Could I be born depressed?
Yes, you could be. You have a higher rate for getting depression if you have depression running in your family, but we don't fully understand what causes it. I think it's a combination of factors. It's not entirely genetic. Lifestyle plays a very huge role. Psychological factors, cultural factors play a very big role. That's why, you could be born perfectly healthy and be perfectly happy. When you break up and someone says, I don't love you anymore, you get depressed. And so that's not genetic. So maybe genes drive the vulnerability a little bit, but ultimately it's your environment and your social support and your support structure that fails you. You can cure depression in many, many cases. So many mild forms of depression sometimes spontaneously resolve, or they can be treated with things like therapy, counseling, maybe even medication. Even severe cases of depression that require medication, about a third of them go into complete remission with successful treatment.
Let me ask you this. And I say this with a huge sense of love for the city of Mumbai. A lot is said about the spirit of Mumbai, which basically is that in the face of every possible adversity and borderline misery that is thrown at them, they just carry on. Is this so-called spirit actually killing Mumbai in a sense? Because this can drive them to the verge of depression or worse.
I think it goes both ways. The resilience that you're talking about is very important because there are two types of stress. When people have a very good support structure, they see stress as an opportunity for growth. They improve themselves, they learn new skills, and then they flourish and become successful. On the other hand, when you don't have a good support structure and you're alone by yourself and you have all these stressors thrown at you, that's when you can perhaps succumb to that stress and perhaps turn to, get severely depressed or get suicidal. So it can be an opportunity for growth, or it can be an opportunity for disaster.
Now, in any regular middle-class household, we always had this, we're basically taught that life is going to be difficult because, let's face it, we have a population which is, on the one hand, a demographic dividend, but it also means that limited resources, and it applies more to Mumbai than any other place, limited resources, we literally have to fight for it. And we were told, take it on the chin and move on. Do you think this is a good time to rethink what we are telling our children?
So the key point here is building resilience. Resilience to stress is typically built in the first 10 or so years of a child's life. So if in the first 10 years of a child's life you can give the child a lot of social and emotional support and give them a safe environment in which to go out and explore new things and to take sort of hits on the chin without feeling like they're going to be left alone, they feel like secure, they can always come back and they find a secure environment, then their resilience grows so that when they're an adult, you can tell them all these things and they can take all the hits that you give them and they'll still bounce back very resilient. So the key is the first 10 years. I think, yes. I don't think we need to talk to children about depression. What we need to do is to teach them the skills that will make them resilient. Traditionally, Indian parents, especially parents in very competitive cities like Mumbai, have focused on studies in like math, physics, chemistry, biology. We almost never focus on what's called as the soft skills. So the soft skills are social and emotional skills. And that's the kind of skill sets we need to teach people. So in America, for example, there's a whole curriculum built upon social and emotional learning. So very simple. How to respond when you're very stressed out. How to respond when someone's bullying you. If someone throws a punch at you, that's taught in a formalized curriculum setting. How to take what's called as a brain break, which is sort of a cool name for meditation for a few minutes. How not to react immediately if someone says something nasty at you. So those kinds of skill sets are very crucial and no one teaches them. And I think it's time for India to begin to sort of incorporate some of those skill sets. And economists have actually shown that children who are taught those social and emotional learning skill sets, the return for every $1 spent, this is a U.S. study, so for every $1 spent, there's anywhere from a $4 to $30 return to society when children are taught these skill sets at a very young age.
Also, of course, we do not have this as a part of formalized education. Later on, even though we're waking up to the issue of mental illness, I don't even know who someone should approach for counseling or treatment or therapy in India. What do you make of the support system that you have for mental illness in India? Did you even find any?
It's a great question. India has a very severe shortage of not only just psychiatrists. I was told India has only about 3,500 psychiatrists, and the ideal number of psychiatrists is around 60,000. So there's a 20-fold shortage of psychiatrists, and there's maybe a 40, 50-fold shortage of psychiatric counselors and other professionals. So the answer is we need to develop ways to scale skills training in those fields. And so you mentioned Deepika. Deepika has a foundation, the Live, what's that? No. It's Live, Love, Laugh Foundation, and they've actually developed formal curriculums to do skills training, and they're also beginning a curriculum to train general practitioner doctors on how to recognize and deal with depression. So this kind of a program on a national level is what we need. But ultimately, I think you can never reach everyone in a small village. So technology may help. For example, telepsychiatry, telemedicine. Could we develop technological tools to provide counseling to people? I agree, but there is no health without mental health. Depression affects every aspect of your physical health, and there's no reason for us to treat depression any differently, because depression shortens your life, reduces your quality of your well-being, affects your interactions with everybody in your family, it affects your work performance. So I think it should be a priority.
One of the things that when we talk about psychiatry, I'll tell you, for instance, someone I know, a personal friend, she for a very long time felt that she was depressed. And when she told her family, she said that no, she was told that in our country, this is just something that the rich make up. We have our family, which is the best mental help setup that you need. What do you make of that?
No, it's true that your friends and family are sort of the best people who can provide you support, but they are not necessarily always trained to recognize clinically serious mental illnesses. So if someone has bipolar disorder or early signs of schizophrenia or depression, the family member may not recognize it, or they may be stigma. So they may say, let's not talk to anybody about it, keep it within the family. And that might further hinder the right diagnosis and treatment. So all this can be addressed by education again. So there is a need for public education. So in other countries, there have been massive public education campaigns that have helped family members recognize it. And there are also programs to train a family member. Once someone in their family has been diagnosed with depression or a mental illness, there are programs that train other family members as to how to best live with them and how to best help them.
As a specialist, can you look at someone, can you enter a room full of people and look at people and figure out...
Analyze them and see what their personality is?
No, or that they're suffering, or they're depressed, or they need help.
No, I think the average person with depression, you probably cannot tell. And men especially are less likely to talk about it. Of course, if someone's drinking too much, or they're irritable, or they're not sleeping well, they have sort of puffs under their eyes, maybe you can tell there's something wrong. But the average depressed person, you probably cannot tell if they're depressed just by looking at them.
You can't tell, then how can a friend or a family member tell
What?
that someone needs help?
Okay, so there's a difference. You're asking me, can I walk into a party and then diagnose someone in 1 second? No. The diagnosis of depression requires a very sort of a detailed history as to how they're functioning in their work, how they're sleeping, how their appetite is. So a family member has the advantage that they are aware of what the person is doing. Are they sleeping well? Are they eating well? Are they waking up early in the morning? Are they tearful? Are they sometimes talking about not wanting to live? Are they complaining about vague aches and pains? And if these symptoms have been going on for 2 weeks or longer, that's when we call it clinical depression. If somebody just talks about it for 1 day or 2 days, that's not. You also have to rule out certain things. So if someone had an obvious loss, like a death in the family, that's grief. So that's not considered depression. Okay? There are also many medical conditions that can mimic depression. If someone has low vitamin levels, low thyroid levels,